So there are many, many elements of a system. This is a little graph that I found fairly useful. If we look at the visible and invisible elements of a system, we have biophysical being the visible. We have our land, our animals, our air, plants, water, fungus, soil, and bacteria, and many others. And in the invisible, we have our finances, our infrastructure, our economics, our education, our legal, our spiritual, and our political systems. So it's really important to kind of use these elements as areas of design and applying the principles to these areas of design, and to understand that, you know, regardless of whether I'm a specialist on plants or on water, that all these other elements exist, and we have to make sure that our system fundamentally works with those elements as well. So why do we need to act? What are the causes that brought you here today? What are the elements that are making us think about a new design paradigm, that are making us think about a new possibility of solutions? Yeah.
We are running out of resources like oil and stuff.
Absolutely.
And our actions are having a negative impact on the environment as well. Sustainable living, so we need to get our act together.
Yeah, definitely. And you said we are running out of resources and we're having a negative impact. And so, if we think about that fundamentally, what is the biggest resource that we're running out of on this planet? Food, and food comes from soil. Thank you. Soil is actually fundamentally the largest loss of resource on this planet, and I think. I can't remember my statistics. I think it's something like 40% of the world's soil has gone in the past 100 years, or 100.
What does that mean, gone?
Well, it has been washed into the ocean, basically. Normally, soil is the energies that are accumulated through organic matter built up into the soil and retained by ecosystems. And so when I say gone, it's usually washed away or burned away, because it's not actually burned by fire, but when we plow up an agricultural field, the reason why plow agriculture developed was because when you plow a field, you introduce a huge amount of oxygen. The oxygen kills all the bacteria, the light kills all the bacteria, and the bacteria, a lot of them are actually 80 to 90% by weight nitrogen. And so you end up killing them and releasing a huge amount of nutrients into the soil. You also, with the organic matter in the soil, you add a bunch of oxygen, and that increases the oxidation or the burning of that organic matter. So we reduce the organic matter, we reduce the life, and when you do that, it reduces the viability of the soil itself, and then the plants die back, and then the soil is let loose to erode out into the ocean and be lost to us. So that fundamental loss of soil degradation, soil erosion is our biggest one. And if we look at what is the major cause of soil erosion around the world, what do we think about? Well, actually cities, I mean, if we look at it in a really detached kind of linear way, they kind of protect a lot of the soil because we encase it in concrete and pavement. And so it's protected from the erosive forces. However, it's also isolated from the systems of life of the planet. So the two things that largely destroy the natural systems of soil around the world is conventional agriculture and deforestation, which is usually what is what brings us to agriculture. And then finally, our impact on the planet is in form of pollution. So the three major things are soil degradation. So this is just a little chart from the United Nations Environmental Protection Agency. So it's talking about soil degradation. Where are areas of the world where we've got extremely degraded soil, or stable or without vegetation. So there's very few areas on this where we have stable soil. Just important to note that that is a big problem. This is a quote from the Dalai Lama. One of the largest problems we face, and we don't even know it, is soil erosion. We don't realize that that is the biggest issue. And if you see this image on the top here, you guys can kind of see it. This is actually the Gulf of Mexico, and all of that green is algal blooms. So the blooming of algae as a response to the high nitrogen that's dissolved in the soil that's eroding off of the landscape and dumping into the ocean. So you can barely see the actual outline of the land because it's skewed by all of this algae that's blooming because of all this natural or amounts of soil that are fertilizing that.
This, but also I think the soil that we are always contaminating.
Yeah.
I know that there is a movie
That's a beautiful movie, actually. And if anyone has the chance, you say it's coming here?
I think so. That's
Okay.
what I heard.
I didn't know. I'm out of the loop. But yeah, if it does come here, you should all try and see it. It's an incredible movie. It's called Dirt, the movie, and it's a great movie about the soil of the earth, and how it's being degraded, how it's being not just lost, but how it's being contaminated, how it's being the cycles are being broken because it's isolated through concrete and asphalt and all that. But it's a really great movie. I really love that one. The second image here is actually just a tractor. Who's just plowing the field, but you can see that you can barely see the tractor. It's not actually a bad quality image, it's just that there's dust everywhere. And the dust is the soil, or what remains of the soil, after we've parched it and killed the life of the soil and let it be to the wind and the sun. The second major cause or reason for us to act is deforestation. And so there's huge amounts of deforestation around the world. In the red, we've got a net loss of forests. In the green, we have current forest cover, and in the dark green, we have net gain in forests. Now, what's important to take note of is that this is also from the UN, the Millennium Ecosystems Assessment, but what they're counting is plants that are being planted through plantations, right? Trees that are being replanted through plantations. And that is not an ecosystem. Those are trees. If anyone has ever walked through a plantation of trees, it is like walking through a graveyard. There are just these tall, straight trees, all the same size. There's not a rabbit, not a butterfly, not a bird or a bee that flies through those desolate ecosystems, because they're not ecosystems. And so this what balances a lot of the deforestation of the world is not planting an ecosystem, it's planting a new resource that they're going to just harvest.
What is the white?
The white, I think, I don't know, actually. No trees whatsoever. Yeah. I didn't think there was that much desert. Probably no data. There are probably zones with no data, most likely. And then there's pollution. And my biggest qualm, yeah?
I just wanted to ask, consider it to be more valuable to keep those areas with those trees, so that there would never be a chance for any sort of cycle to introduce itself into the area, and so
It depends. My house in Nova Scotia, we live on 75 acres, and through my childhood I watched all the areas surrounding us be deforested. When I was 5, the whole 70 acres to the left was deforested. When I was 10, it was the 70 acres to the right. And when I was 15, it was the 100 acres to the back. So we're this island of life now, and they didn't replant any of it. And the systems are regenerating. Nature will take its balance again. And there is a diversity. There's whatever seeds have been brought in by the birds, there's whatever systems, the bushes were able to push up through the compacted soil and the brambles left by the porters and the harvesters. So the systems will rebalance themselves. And I find that there is still more life in those desolate areas than there is in the replanted zones. But what is important to note as well is this is the negative aspect of it, right? I don't want to dwell too much on it, but it's also good to note that the foresters are doing a good job. You know, they're doing a much better job. Before, they used to only take seeds from a specific tree that was a very good specimen, and they would take those seeds and propagate seedlings and then grow them, or they would make clones and grow those. But ever since we had the spruce budworm in the eastern regions of Canada and the US, and now we have the lodgepole pine beetle in the western regions that have wiped out these whole monocultures, they are paying tree planters to go and collect